salam sejahtera dan kasih sekian rekan-rekan hotel, khususnya saudara Gus Saleh, bank jadi standar tinggi sikit, dan rekan-rekan Menteri dan rekan-rekan hadir. Saya nak jelaskan bahawa forum ilmuwan ini satu usaha dia menggalakkan wacana ilmu yang segar, mengundang dari dunia ilmuwan, peranan korporat dan juga wakil pemerintah untuk mendengar dan mendapat hujah alasan, teguran atau kritikan dalam cara yang sangat terbuka dan santai. Bagi saya, mengangkat martabat memperkasa atau disebut madani dalam arti kata pemerkasaan ekonomi budaya itu mesti selari dengan kesanggupan mengangkat juga upayaan dari sebut ilmu. Sebab itu kita ajukan orang ilmuwan dengan berbagai tajuk. Saya hadir 3 dan 4, 2 dan 3, ini keempat. Dan saya terima kasih khususnya kepada saudara Zamri dan KPT yang bantu menyelaraskan tanpa allowance tambahan. Baik, should we proceed in English for the benefit of some others? It's your problem, not understanding Malay, not my problem. Anyway, this is quite a unique feat in this country, where the leadership wants to encourage open reason discourse, what we call the intellectual forum, to encourage a healthy, frank exchange of views, representing the corporate sector, academia, and the representative of the government. And the exchanges should be very informal, relaxed. Make sure that you hold the line. I have to chair. Because I think I need to just set an example to encourage this our health condition. This country can move forward. I think what is, to me, a deficit is a healthy, reason, intellectual discourse. We can't assume that we have all the answers, and therefore we need to listen. And we need to respond if necessary. But we need to come up new ideas. Where a country can only grow and advance, and the entire process of empowerment require what we mean is sending of guiding ideas. And in the post-normal times that we often reiterate, is that this was challenging, it's unprecedented, is a process that happening all one time, all the issues, all the critical issues, what we call simultaneity, everything is simultaneous. And we need new ideas. Who has all the answers about it? Energy transition, for example, or digital transformation, and here, for example, a conventional bank, how to deal with cryptocurrency, for example, and or Bitcoin. Because a traditional, conventional view would say, no, stop. Most central banks here, and even in the European Union, it is rejected outright for decades. But is it an issue that we have to address? Can we make use of it or engage in a manner that they can be incorporated or should be rejected? These are issues that no government should have the monopoly to assume you understand, or even have to grapple with it and deal with it. Similarly, the whole issue about not only commercial banks, but now the GLCs, we were talking about also gigs for that matter. Do we need to continue at this pace? Do we need to assume, therefore, that all these agencies set up in the 70s, 80s, 90s are all relevant? Or do we need to merge? Do we need to probably disband them? And these are issues that would be useful. You can have a useful exchange, because political leaders will have their own limitations, because many of these agencies are chaired by warlords. I don't know about Maybank. No, not Maybank, an exception. And bureaucrats have their own setup. I must thank the Secretary General, the Chief Secretary, because he represents a different view. To say that, look, we are here not just to behave like a chief clerk. You are here as Secretary Generals, as Director Generals, as Chief Secretary. You are supposed to generate ideas, to understand our limitations, our failures, and the need to affect change and reform. Which means you must have the intellectual capacity not only to have a good grasp of the issues at hand, and to ensure that Malaysia remains competitive and comparative advantage to other countries. We tend to, for example, Zafar was aware when we some reports to show how good we are in 23, or we were 23 as compared to 20 and 1990. But I said, fair, why can't you then compare with our neighboring countries, or the most successful countries? We can establish great success if you compare to Chad and Zimbabwe. But certainly that's not, without, I tend to feel that Prime Minister should not mention countries. I apologize. So these are new approaches. We were with Zamri and the team today about the need to effect change and reform the higher education, a blueprint, which I would say an impressive presentation. But still, we need some very critical views to challenge accepted norm. I mentioned that even the United States, as far back as the 1980s, under Reagan, when he set up this commission on higher education, and entitled, because there's a group of scholars who are quite critical of the system, or the failure of the system, the title of the report, the Commission on Higher Education, was A Nation at Risk. Can you imagine? The standard of education in the United States, and still you have a report debunking the established normative thinking that things seems to be all right, and the report was entitled A Nation at Risk, because declining of standards and the challenge from the new emerging economies, including China at that time, and some other countries. So when we, for example, introduce the report, do we want, therefore, to just say some minor adjustments are necessary? Or do we need to undertake some bold, radical measures? Only through bold and radical measures can we ascertain our level of success. That's my introductory lecture. Now, we go back to Datuk. I was Saleh, President dan Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Kumpulan Maybank. Good luck.
Terima kasih Datuk Seri, Perdana Menteri, Ministers, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. And Prime Minister, we are happy to host this event. We would have actually liked for you to go to our building, but I think next time perhaps. Now, lebih dahulu Datuk Seri, bagi pihak lembaga pengarah dan pengurusan Maybank, saya ingin mengambil kesempatan ini untuk mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Menteri dan juga yang berhormat Datuk Seri Datuk Zafri atas kesempatan yang diberikan kepada Maybank bagi melanjutkan forum ini. Malam Datuk Seri, kami telah mendapat peluang juga untuk bekerjasama dengan Kementerian Ekonomi Maybank dalam menganjurkan forum ekonomi Malaysia yang pertama di Kuala Lumpur. I think the response was overwhelming. Very good. Congratulations. So in forum tersebut telah disediakan dengan kehadiran yang amat berhormat, di mana berbagai topik telah diperbincangkan. Today, if I may again use English, from the banking perspective, it's about digital banking. So if you go to the next page straight, can we move the slide to the next page? Or I'm supposed to meet myself at this. Okay. I think Maybank approach that was is not about jumping straight into fintech or digital banking. Maybank's approach is actually to start from a purpose. Yeah? And our purpose is as such lah. Kalau dalam bahasa Malaysia, kami adalah platform yang dipacu nilai, dikuasakan oleh tenaga kerja bionik yang menginstankan perkhidmatan awam. So in English, we are a values-driven platform. Yeah? So when we talk about values here, it's an ethical bank, ethics. Okay? And when we talk about platform, this is where we think we want to build to serve our customers better, using an ecosystem. Yeah? So in a way, technology basically underpins the way we work, the products we serve, and how we serve them to our customers. But more importantly, actually, it is our values and principles that guide us to a greater and deeper purpose. Yeah? So we want to anchor whatever we do on this purpose. So it's through this values-driven ataupun nilai technology-based approach that we are able to contribute to the prosperity for the nation while making our offerings inclusive and accessible. So this is the pivot. Yeah? Now, so I just want to highlight that other part that was really in our purpose statement, menginstankan perkhidmatan kewangan. Okay? So in English, actually, it's humanizing financial services. So you have always emphasized humanizing economy, etc. But on our part, particularly our purpose, menginstankan. This is a bit busy slide, and you will see little thing on technology tonight, unfortunately, right? But it's more about the approach. And when we look at this slide, maybe from the top, it's basically memenuhi perjalanan pelanggan pengguna hujung ke hujung. Or in English, fulfilling the customer journey end to end. I think that's the key thing, right? How we can use technology to basically fulfill the customer journey end to end. Now, another part of this important slide is that more and more, we know that the journey of a customer is not just about banking. The journey of a customer is about lifestyle, right? So then how can we use technology and how we can use digital capability to fulfill the customer journey, not just within the banking needs, but beyond banking. So I'll give you an example. If you look at the pemilikan rumah, yeah, underlying pemilikan rumah itu, we actually have an application which we call Home to You app. And this is where applicants can apply housing loan directly to us, yeah, digitally, right? And we can approve it within minutes because we have got algorithm to do that. But if you look to the right-hand side along the same line, the Seri pemilikan rumah itu, you somehow will see an icon, Saimlabi, UEM, and even Equal, because we have actually linked our Home to You app with the application of Sandabi and also UEN as property developers. Because we know from a customer journey point of view, when a consumer wants to apply for a housing loan, he or she will need to find a house first, right? And because he or she needs to find a house, we want to link our home application for housing loan with the application of the property developer. And hence, a home buyer will only need to go into a signed property app to buy a house and also apply for a housing loan from your bank. And this is why I mentioned about memenuhi perjalanan pelanggan pengguna ujung ke ujung. Right? So we need to start building that ecosystem that can fulfill the customer journey. And the whole concept is all about, right? Now, if you look at Maybank Seri, we have got 12.9 million customers, individual customers. 80% of which are in the M40. Right? Sorry, B40. And this accounts for almost 50% of the Malaysian population aged 15 years and older. Last year alone, we helped over 60,000 households to buy a home and almost 200,000 Malaysians to buy vehicles. Yeah? Now, within this 12.9 million, we have 9 million active customers, right? And within the 900,000 SMEs, we've got 100,000 who are active. Now, so I think equally important again is about the inclusion of the customer in terms of fulfilling the customer journey, as I mentioned earlier. Now, I want to just go to the next slide in terms of the next customer journey, which is PKF, which is at the SME. Right? Again, the concept is end-to-end. Now, if you look at the approach, in fact, if I go back to the previous page, right? On the left-hand side there, you will see that from the top, keperluan harian, pinjaman, pemilikan rumah, mobility, kekayaan, percayaan is faith, perlindungan. We are actually trying to fulfill the customer journey across all the needs digitally. Right? So it's just no longer about applying a loan. It's everything that the customer needs, and we provide it digitally on a single platform. And we are even moving away from just banking. Right? Yeah? So that's the concept. Similarly for SME, the concept is the same. So you look at the top, urus account, operasi harian, perdagangan global, pinjaman, kemapanan, sustainability, halal. You know, we have also tried to fulfill that journey as well. So more and more, if you look at the first one, for example, I know Datuk Zana Putih is here. We have even linked to TM, our app for SME, for TM to be able to offer to their customers Maybank products and services. And this is what we call embedded financing. Yeah? So more and more, if you know about open banking, embedded financing, this is the approach. And we have built an API for all these partners to connect with us. Similarly, on halal to you, we have actually built an ecosystem. So from our end point of view, we have got an ecosystem for digitalization of halal, for facilitation of halal certificate. But at the same time, if you look at the bottom right, Salam Market, we have also linked our app with this app called Salam Market as a marketplace for halal marketplace between the B2B. Right? So people can go there, a buyer can go there and then buy products and services from other halal services on the app that is linked to our other apps. Yeah? So similarly for the middle one, for example, under operasi harian, apart from the operating account that we provide, we have also linked our app with services such as accounting solution and payroll solution, because we know SME needs to focus on the business SME cannot afford to buy all the expensive enterprise applications like SAP and etc. And these are all the cheap, off-the-shelf one that can connect to our own trade system and cash management system for them to focus on the business. We help them to take care of their bank. Right? So again, the concept is end-to-end customer journey, not just within banking, but also beyond banking. My last slide, Mr. Seri. We do this with this type of capability.
everybody talk about GDP growth, they always question sama ada dia dapat rasa tak peningkatan KDNA. So because sometimes not everyone feels it. So this is about inclusivity, and hopefully with technology we can ensure that as many people benefit from that. But on the downside, there's also technological gaps that we need to address. When we talk about fintech in ASEAN or even fintech in Malaysia, not everybody have access to the technology. So that is another issue that we need to address. And then on the final note, for us, we need to ensure that we all work as one. I mean, as ASEAN is here, the whole of government approach, but also whole of nation approach, where all of you in this room will have a role to play to ensure that whatever application, in this case fintech, has a result and has an outcome that's both inclusive and sustainable. Thank you.
Terima kasih Saudara Zafrul. Sebelum ini kita dengar Maybank ini dan dari segi perbankan adalah gergasi di rantauan. Di sini dunia besar juga di Indonesia dan negara lain. Dan kita perlu memanfaatkan ini untuk menjana perdagangan yang lebih agresif. Dan ini ditekankan oleh Saudara Zafrul. Dan sebab itu ada kebijakan ekonomi melalui LAN perindustrian. Kalau saudara baca peran perindustrian yang baru ini, dia bukan suatu pengulangan atau penambahan. Dia memberikan fokus kepada sektor. Dan di antara yang ditekankan termasuklah digital dan apa yang disebut dalam bidang tenaga. Dan dalam ASEAN kita beruntung kerana hubungan yang sangat baik di antara jiran-jiran. Maksudnya dalam satu bulan ini kita ada lawatan dari Perdana Menteri Thailand, Perdana Menteri Singapura, Presiden Prabowo Indonesia semalam, dan dengan cohesiveness begini rupa, dia menjadi tarikan dari Turkmenistan datang untuk juga menggalakkan kerjasama kita dengan Asia Tengah. Dan Jepun di Shiva tadi mengunjungi Malaysia, tapi ini negara pertama yang dia pilih telah menjadi Perdana Menteri. Dan itu dalam perbincangan yang agak komprehensif, saya agak tertarik kerana juga harapan perbincangan tertutup dan juga dua hala bilateral yang agak paling panjang dan paling komprehensif. Dia menyentuh bidang-bidang yang sangat serius. Jadi cuma ada beberapa isu yang kita tekankan kerana seperti Nasional Zafrul sebut ini, beberapa besar dia syarikat besar. Jadi kita ada keperluan menekankan dia disebut sebagai sebentar lalu, tetapi MKS ini kerana semua yang dari CIMB, Maybank, mana dia berasa yang itu. Jadi sebab itu pada malam ini selain daripada yang kita tekankan, kita minta kerjasama kami yang dari Funding Society Malaysia yang akan juga memberikan penekanan tentang PMKS di rantau ini. Kerana saya tahu kekuatan PMKS sangat besar. Dan di antara kritikan yang saya terima pada awal bila saya jadi Perdana Menteri dan juga sebelum, bahawa Malaysia tidak memberikan dukungan rangsangan yang cukup kuat pada PMKS. Karena maka dalam belanjawan madani masuk tahun lalu, dia telah berikan satu suntikan yang besar dan penumpuan dengan memberi penekanan kepada agasi-agasi pusat untuk memberikan pertimbangan khas. Jadi itu silakan.
Good evening, everyone. Yang amat berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia, My Descendant Datuk Seri Utama Zafrul Abdul Aziz, Minister of Investment and Industry, Ivy Tansri, Ansu Hazri, Abu Bakar, Secretary, Ivy Datuk Mustafa Tamur, Deputy Minister of Higher Education, and Datuk Khairul Saleh Ramli, President and Group CEO of Bank, industry leaders and distinguished guests. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here today. I think I'm coming in and sharing perhaps from a perspective of a fintech player, our experiences and our observations, our journey, in seeing how the digital financial services has helped transform SMEs in Malaysia, as well as driving more inclusive prosperity and growth for the country. No, we'll definitely share also in terms of some of the things that we observe as key success factors of what we have experienced across the region, given where our footprint is. I think to start off, I think we all recognize in terms of the impact and the importance of SMEs, in terms of the vast majority of businesses that they represent, contribution to GDP, contribution to employment. But having said that, they still seem to be having a lot of persistent challenges in terms of achieving growth. And I think we just wanted to talk a bit about how then, from our perspective, has helped to overcome some of those challenges and help them to drive the growth that they desire. I think from our own experience, I think we are quite familiar with the fact that SMEs are very, has limited access to credit, but from our experience, it goes beyond just that. Thank you. But I think it goes beyond just access to credit. I think SMEs also face challenges in terms of managing their cash flows, as well as managing their daily financial operations. Yes, thank you. And I think this has been traditionally an area that is structurally quite difficult to serve, given how heterogeneous and how different SMEs are, right, across the different industries and different sizes. So for example, when we serve a retailer or wholesalers that sells fish, they're going to have very different financial needs from someone that sells tires, although you can easily just classify them as wholesale or retail traders. So we've taken a very specialized, structured approach towards how to overcome these challenges. So for us, we are a digital platform, and we focus on providing small and short-term financing by connecting them with both private as well as public institutional funding partners, such as SME Corp, Raju, and MICIF, amongst many others. We also help SMEs beyond lending to also make and receive payments much more seamlessly through a no-code solution. Beyond the funding partners, we also work with the likes of CGC and CGC Digital to help to make SMEs more creditworthy and hence giving them much broader access to financial services. And I think in this sense, we are also in parallel working with Maybank to come up with new innovative solutions to bring to the market to better serve the SME segment. I think we also were quite fortunate to be able to help support the Menteri grant for SME digitalization in terms of reaching out and also process and also enable the payments for these grants to these SMEs. I think since launching in Malaysia 8 years ago, we've disbursed more than 4 billion ringgit to SMEs in Malaysia itself and supporting more than 40,000 SMEs along the way through both payments and lending propositions. Based on our estimate in 2021, it was a study with the Asian Development Bank. The funding that we have given regionally across all the other, inclusive of the 4 markets that we operate in, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Singapore, has contributed an additional 16 billion ringgit in terms of GDP contribution and helped to add 350,000 jobs. Now, being in financial services, trust is very important. And a large part of our progress has been driven by the progressiveness and the forward-thinking stature or posture of the regulatory framework. So I think just an example, the P2P financing regulatory framework was first announced in Malaysia amongst all the other ASEAN countries. And I think that paved the way to developing an industry that was balanced in terms of allowing innovation, but at the same time also protecting the consumer and the investors. So I think that progressiveness has actually enabled Malaysia to be one of the most successful countries within our group. And this has allowed us to also export some of the key innovations that we have developed internally. So for instance, digital instant loans and digital supply chain financing to other countries within the group itself. Just a few more minutes. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to get into a bit more specificity in terms of how we actually have used AI technology in terms of improving the livelihoods and the growth of SMEs. We've actually taken inspiration from Datuk and Maybank to incorporate AI technology across the life cycle of the SME. So to us, it's a must-have, not a nice-to-have, because of the thin margins that we earn, as well as the shorter-term financing proposition, and also the very manual, relatively manual, offline nature of SMEs in Malaysia. So to that end, we have taken a hybrid approach. So we have a fully digital journey that SMEs can go to our website and apply for their needs, financing needs, end-to-end, without having to speak or meet with anyone. But at the same time also, if they do need help, we have an offline, very friendly team to help them along the journey. We've taken an offline to online approach for, let's say, SMEs that prefer to have an offline experience, but we try to nudge them online through basically digital proposition and user experiences that are quite user-friendly. So one example is the digital supply chain financing proposition. We focus on short-term financing, and a big part of it is usually trade finance. Typically, this is reserved for commercial, mid-market, and large corporates because they are relatively low margin and very much people-dependent. But through the digital supply chain financing, we've been able to push it out to the SMEs so they can actually log in, they can actually monitor their financing limits, they can request for disbursements, and they can manage their repayments all through the digital portal itself. And it's actually implemented across all 100% of our customers. So now they're actually all self-serve, which makes the whole business model feasible. So I think at the end of the day, just to also take a step back, that the innovation that we see here is not just purely about efficiency gains and about productivity, but it's also about inclusion. Because what it means is that now we are able to serve a much wider population of the SME segment, particularly the smaller SMEs that require maybe smaller amounts of financing for shorter periods that may not be previously profitable to do. So I think in closing, we have come a long way since 2017 that we launched in Malaysia, and I think we have seen much progress, candidly speaking. But I think there's still more to be done, and I think on that note, policymakers, industry leaders, regulators, would definitely need to come together collaboratively to basically fulfill the potential of digital financial services and empower and grow the economy much better in a much more inclusive manner. Thank you.
Definitely more in society, because you can underestimate the importance and the role they play. Because one major problem is the reluctance and the resistance by the SMEs to undertake this change. You see, in terms of digitalization, that affects, for example, policy for the workers, and the, for example, the low price production, not utilizing it to the maximum. Partly because of the reluctance to change. Now, I believe that probably private sector initiatives like this, slightly can be more effective, and we will also get with Astro to get the land institutions to help manage. Because there's a huge capacity of SMEs, but it's generally termed as comfortable and rather conservative in terms of undertaking change. They fear. The moment you talk about digitalization, I remember when budget dialogue we had, they think there's going to cost so much money, so much new investment, and they don't have the capacity to think so. But then, with, for example, your effort probably to show to them that it's not that expensive, no difficult, because they think it's something, people my age, the moment you talk about digitalization, something Greek to us. Yesterday, let's book was. Everybody told me that, it's easy reading, I had to struggle with the introduction and the first chapter. But with some effort, you realize it's not as difficult, but just to get them to be more focused and interested. So thank you very much. Baik, sekarang ini masa untuk sudah bertanya dan kritik apa yang banyak formality protokol, tak ada protokol. Tanya aja, tak payah yang kau nak tanya, kau nak sebut penuh yang amat buah amat Datuk Seri utama di Raja semuanya berwaris. Kalau tidak sebut terus soalan, tak payah. Okey, baik, terima kasih.
Datuk Seri, saya kepada Presiden Menteri. Report saya kepada juga Hozan dari UIA dan juga gabungan bertindak anti-scam Malaysia. Kita dapati tahun ini saja, 2024, hilang 1.7 bilion ringgit Malaysia through jenayah scam. 1.2 bilion, saya repeat the President, 1.2 bilion. It is not small money, bukan kecil. Dan maksudnya adalah orang kecil. Ikan bilis, tak kena tangkap bila, tapi nama punishmentnya kecil. Bank CIMB tahu dia apa-apa, because dia hilang dengan depositors. Tadi sepanjang presentation tadi, tidak ada berusaha macam mana nak mengesankan, menginsankan, tapi tak ada esankan. Bagaimana you want to care and compassion orang yang hilang jenayah scam, not just Maybank, but the whole entire bank. So bagi saya, Maybank and all bank providers kena bertanggungjawab, sikap bertanggungjawab. It's happened in your house. You're losing up the depositors. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Memang betul, scam ni is a major issue in the industry. Kalau apologies kita tak cover ni, because I only got 5 minutes, but certainly banking sector, including Maybank, together with Bank Negara, we have actually worked tirelessly to put things in place. Say for example, education is important, right? First and foremost is about providing awareness and education on how, to educate people out there to see some signs of possible scam. Banking sector alone last year, invested about 10 million just for awareness, let alone to upgrade their system. Satu lagi ialah feature-feature yang telah diintroducekan pada application lah. So contohnya sekarang ni kalau nak tukar telefon untuk application transaction online, kita ada bagi 12 jam sebelum kita aktifkan semula supaya kalau ada apa-apa yang terjadi, ada keraguan waktu itu dan pelanggan itu boleh telefon, masih ada waktu. Bank Negara pun sekarang ni dah ketatkan lagi dia punya guidelines against the banks, to make sure that the responsibility is clear. Now, the other part of it is that maybe Yang Berhormat, this is where I can also request, because when you look at online scam, as far as the value chain is concerned, right, it's not just the bank. Before they even want to get a bank app, they buy a phone. And they buy a phone, they buy a line, telephone line, right? All these transactions go through telephone lines. we need the telcos to also take accountability. So in Singapore, for example, the regulator and even the authorities have included the telcos to also be a party to be responsible. Because if you look at the phones, we already know who is the registered owner. Right? Kalau ada apa-apa yang kita keraguan, can we get the information straight from the telco to say who is the owner of this? But I must say, unfortunately, we're not getting the assistance. I am president of the Association of Banks as well. I'm requesting that again. I have also requested from Perdana if we can get telcos to be part of this as well. I think it's a major issue, but I think it has brought now, again together with Perdana, we have even got a portal of scam, etc. The number year on year has reduced with all these things, but a lot more can be done. I agree.
Cuma nak sebut memang negara sedang koordinat, ya. Telcos has been informed. Ada tadakan untuk pindah kuasa digital untuk kawal social media dan terus melalui social media tak financial scam dan lain-lain. Jadi ini sedang diperhatikan. Tapi kebimbangan kita ada reaksi bahawa nampak macam undang-undang itu terbuka. We have to look at it. Yes, please.
Terima kasih. My first question is to Mayor Funding Society. Impact, you have worked across any region and cities, and you have to operate regulatory. So many of our funding society startups are not doing smart as what they're doing progressively. And in Singapore, because by the industry was saying that we have many agencies. In Singapore, really thanks to the monetary, Singapore Monetary Authority, one stop for all. Here we have some agencies and the impact. So it is a big challenge because we want to be a startup ecosystem of 20 by 20. So can you share about your experience in dealing with strategy so that they should when you look at the wish to rationalize, there's so many agencies talking, but it's not easy for the people to do. So the second question is to you know that I organized as a chairman of the bank. I have organized a meeting with all the chairmen of banks, how we fund the industrial master plan. Because 70% of the banking portfolio is still public risk. So we need to shift our funding if we want to achieve the medium income of 4,000 by 2030. You see the banks are doing enough to fund automation, mechatronics, and all the spillover effects. Because I find the bank is not doing enough. After the chairman or he has to have close collaboration with the banking society, with the banking community to fund the industrial master plan in the next 5 years. Otherwise, we are back to square. So that's a comment on the role of the bank. And my question to Datuk, the bank, I was coordinating the Islamic fintech and launched the master plan. And I invite all the banks for the discussion. And the complaint from the Islamic fintech is that the bank is not as inclusive. They see them as a bank, other as a part of the ecosystem. May not be big bank. Many of them have problems getting the growth momentum of the Islamic fintech or the bank. I'm not saying that as part of the ecosystem. I just want to see whether there is a mindset change among the bank to see more inclusive to get the fintech as part of it.
Thank you for the question. So I think maybe if I can clarify my understanding, the question is around whether it was the experiences navigating the government institutions and agencies to get the necessary support to grow the business in Malaysia versus in other markets perhaps. So that was my understanding of the question. I think So I think a bit more background. So I was the co-founder for the Malaysian business as well. So I came back here from, didn't have anything, had to figure out how to open a bank account, and then what a corporate secretary was. This was a corporate job with us again. But I think those early days was definitely a bit more challenging because no one knew who we were and what we do, what we did. FinTech was a bit of a foreign word. But I think over the past couple of years, the journey has been quite. I think it was very clear to us who we need to go to. So, for instance, in Malaysia, we are one of the main counterparts they work with. Let's say is MTech. So they have been actually quite useful in terms of connecting us with other ecosystem players within the tech startups ecosystem. Because partnership is one of our go-to-market strategies. So we work with them, let's say some agro-food type platforms to help to provide financing to, say, farmers or smallholders. So MTech has been actually one of those parties that we work with quite closely in order to get access to these startups. I think just to put it into numbers, Malaysia is the largest, if not the most successful country within the 5 countries that we operate in. Where in terms of book size, in terms of the numbers of SMEs that we've impacted and supported. So I think there are a couple of agencies that we see out there, but it has never been an issue whereby we get bounced around and we don't know what to do next. They're all very willing and willing to work with us. And the experience in Singapore is very similar. So you go to one or 2 agencies, and then they just tell you, okay, these are the things, these are the different financing support that we have, these are the ecosystem in the tech space, these are what we can connect you with. I think one extra benefit, what sort of like puts Malaysia a bit further ahead, I think, is from a regulatory perspective. So I think the interesting point is that, so we're regulated under SE. And then under the SE, there is the digital and innovation arm, which they have been actually quite helpful in terms of connecting us with the different government agencies and ministries. So for example, for agriculture, they connected us with AgroBank. So then now we have conversations with AgroBank, for instance, in terms of how do we want to serve and reach out to smallholders and farmers and provide financing. So I think that is that's one of the bigger differences compared to working regulators in other markets. So I think as a whole, at least from our own experience, the journey has been what you expect, right? Working with governments and regulators.
Thank you. So the question, for those of you who may not be aware about the Industrial Master Plan, for the Industrial Master Plan, one of the targets, as mentioned, is to increase household income. And we want to increase household income with a mean of 4,500 ringgit by the year 2030 for the manufacturing sector in particular. So the 4 mission, one of them is to increase economic complexity, will mean that more companies that come into Malaysia or more companies that are already in Malaysia, when they move up the value chain, with the companies becoming more sophisticated, salary will then go in line with the increasing economic complexity. Back to the question, then what can we achieve this if the financial services are not playing their part? Actually, we know how important financial services is to the whole ecosystem, the whole equation of achieving those targets under Industrial Master Plan. We quantified it as 90 billion ringgit. Not all under the financial services. Basically looking at financial support from equity markets, from debt markets, in equity and debt in the capital markets, the private equity markets, the venture capital markets. So it covers the whole vertical of financing. So banks, I think, will play a major role. Your question, I think, more towards the banks. We have been trying, we have been engaging. We tried and now successfully engaging. There are, of course, to be fair to the banks, their risk appetite may not be as high as some of the others in that vertical. So for the like of Maybank, for example, they will come in at the different stage of development of the company, maybe pre-IPO or even the IPO of the bank. Again, we also need to educate the banks, because when you look at capacity building within banks, they are always used to the traditional sectors, the plantation sector, the construction sector, so the digital economy, especially when it comes to semiconductor, is still very new to them. But it's not new to Malaysia. 50% of our manufacturing export is semiconductor. 40% of total exports is E&E. But if you look at the funding, they are coming mainly from foreign banks. So this is where I think with the National Semiconductor Strategy launched by our Prime Minister, we'll try and educate, engage the financial services sector, especially the local banks, to see how they can play a role in building the local champions in this. And I think Maybank has been quite instrumental in this.
If I may add to that point, so for example, in Maybank, we have now even set up a new business criteria for risk appetite to finance SMEs in the semiconductor business, right? And of course, one of the ways is to be able to reduce the item, because we know that the principles are big, and the principles are good credit to it. And we will then, rely on these big principles to tighten cash flow business. So that's what we're doing. I think the other question from Datuk is about banks' willingness to work with fintech, and of course on the Islamic side in particular. If you ask me maybe 5 years ago, banks were a bit apprehensive on fintech. Right? They look at them as competitors, but it's different now. Now it's more about collaborating, because a lot of the capabilities that banks have now, are still outdated, and if they continue the way that they do now, fintech will overtake that. And banks that are willing to work with fintech will be the one that will progress faster. So it's a competitive environment that is taking place now. And similarly with us, we used to maybe look at Money Society a few years ago as our competitor, but now we're even investing in Money Society. We want to work with them, collaborate with them, right? And identify opportunities for relationship. On the Islamic side, for example, for Maybank, I mentioned in my presentation that 2 things at least we are doing already this year. One is what we call the Salam market. We are doing already with Orong platform, which is a fintech. Basically for them to bring the buyers and the sellers B2B as a marketplace, and then again we can help them with the banking solutions, the payments, the credit facility as well. The other one is the halal certification. We are actually facilitating halal facilitation online, and we have got this app called SingSoft to be able to work, to facilitate, and of course make the application to JAKIM for purposes of halal certification. In Indonesia, for example, we are also progressing from a halal model. We were able to do Muhammadiyah system, right? For example, penetrate the Islamic community. As you know, Muhammadiyah is huge. So again, my point is about, I think fintech end of the day is about collaboration, no more competition. Wherever doesn't go, fintech, banks, especially, they will fall behind, for sure, because banks have got a lot of legacy, and if they are still continuing with that legacy, they will fall behind.
Assalamualaikum, Azman from Perdana. Quick question is for Cairo. I think for SMEs, they seem to have a challenge in getting funding, mainly because of PSB requirement. I see that a lot. And the reason is because I think most of the banks put the valuations on ESG very high. So SMEs, of course, some of them do not have the means to invest in ESG initiative. Now, my thinking is that we should actually have tiered evaluation for the SMEs, because if you look at the UN SDG initiatives, there are 17 areas where they can comply. But it seems to me that banks, when they want to actually fund some of the SMEs, they put these people even at the highest, some listed companies. So that's why a lot of SMEs do not get funding. Even if they get funding, the cost of funds, that they push to the SMEs are giving. So that, defeats the purpose of them going to the banks as well. So can, let's say, Maybank, through your chairmanship of the bankers and also the bank, perhaps look at a tiered system in terms of evaluating the SMEs will actually come in for loans to the banks. I think that will help.
Well, I will respond and support that also, because that has been a major issue which we did discuss with the cabinet. We mark this new agenda to push the SMEs. The major complaint was source of funds. Very difficult. Number two, even when they issue collateral, etc., the cost of funds is substantially higher. And I think Harold better respond carefully.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of criticism, thrown at banks, almost about the SME. There are mechanisms. I think Datuk mentioned about the different level of maturity of SME, and at various levels of maturity, there's a different source of funding. Right? So you need angel investor equities, banks, etc. Now, when we look at credit for SME, then again, there are different types, right? Then, depending on whether it's straightforward or not, there is also credit enhancement that SME can get. So we've got CDC, we've got SJPP that can come in to guarantee. And in Maybank alone, we've done a few billion, right? I think more than 20 billion just on SJPP and CDC, right? Financing to SME. What else? Now, okay. So I think one of the things that Maybank has done, for example, is what we call digital retail SME financing, right? And this is not reliant on any collateral, right? So we look at their account, we look at their transactions, we look at their receipts, payments. We look at just their, maybe we are even financing companies that have been established less than 2 years. And the financing can go as low as 3,000 ringgit. And we already have got more than 2 billion ringgit in this portfolio. Yeah? Now, so what I'm trying to say is that banks are now gravitating towards not relying on collateral really, but looking at the behavior, looking at transaction activities, looking at how timely the owner of the SME pays the bills, right? Because that is the attitude, and sometimes it's more the trust that we see amongst our applicants that we get at the profile and how they behave, as opposed to just relying on collateral. And more banks are working on that. We can do a lot more, of course, but we will take that in our straight in terms of time to support the SME. One of the reasons, again, why we are also investing in funding society, for example, we know that they have got different capability that we don't have in assessing SMEs, right? And the way that they provide financing, is only for maybe a few days of financing, then they have to pay back. So it's very short-term working capital basic. So then the whole stream of our capability is there, right? So there may be things that we may not be able to do based on our current policies, but we're also opening up to platforms like Funding Society to collaborate with Maybank to be providing these types of financing to those that may not be able to get from banks.
Just to follow up on what Datuk mentioned earlier on about SME, although initially my question was on another topic, just to follow up. We have what we call the ITEC program, and we use that as one part. But unfortunately, if we look at the amount and the number of SME, it's very small. If you want to create impact using Islamic social finance, it must be a whole concerted effort. Cuma challenge kita di Malaysia ialah zakat kita very much distributed. Sama juga untuk zakat because it's at the state level. So I think it's high time for us to really galvanize zakat to be a national program. Understand that it become a powerful instrument to address and to enhance ITK. Kalau tidak, we will continue to have fragmented program, small amount, and the only way is to get MOF to fund that, which is not tenable.
So I believe that we need to get maybe a higher level to agree that it should be a national program. I know this is such a gift, tetapi kalau kita nak tunjuk bahawa Islamic social finance is a very powerful instrument, this is one of the ways. Kalau tidak, we can continue talking about it and be happy discussing in a conference without any actual results. That's my suggestion.
Terima kasih. Dari segi conceptual framework, we are able. But the issue of zakat is supposed to stay is under the various sultans. So the implementation can be an issue. We have taken this up, and I think there's of course reluctance because this is the purview of the religious authorities in the state. And zakat is of course a major source of revenue, although it's well discussed, to be fair, but not in the economic sense. The social financing is more to cater for that stuff. So the portion it should be made for social financing is somewhat missing. We are trying to do it for wilayah, and I think Selangor is trying to do it, Perdana. But of course, it will be most effective, it can be coordinated at the national level if the volume is much larger. But I think I'm not denying this importance or critical importance, but I think it is quite a challenging task to try and convince the rulers to try and coordinate all zakat efforts. They are willing to listen, they can get the parameters right. In fact, I must give credit to them because the level of management, transparency is much better than what has happened in the past. But in terms of taking it as a national proposition, it will be much difficult, right? The short one, kita nak itu. Azman bin Bazar, susah nak kata no. Are you right? You are reading the whole book or?
Yeah, I have to speak up to support Datuk Azmi, who's my CEO himself, my chair, of negara. Jadi topik right on top, menginstankan perkhidmatan kewangan. I used to tease Datuk Saleh before that, dan Seri before that, dan Tuzah juga. Kalau kita nak humanize financial services, does it mean it's inhuman to begin with? Jokes aside, Maybank is already 60-something%, right? Islamic, because through the visionary leadership, not just English. Having said that, since the question of zakat timbul dari Muhammad, the annual collection, you're right, by the state, 5 billion, lebih kurang. Wilayah Selangor being the highest, and somehow terleh nombor 3. Banking system, the latest number is 2.5 trillion, roughly, maybe 2.6 now. Capital market, wang adik is here, 4 trillion. So let's step back, if we talk about all of nation, to get a sense of perspective and scale. I tekad, saya memang sangat teruja. I think it's a great effort, started during COVID by the way. And Muhammad, you raised the amount from 50 million to 100 million Ibrahim negara, and I think subsequent budgets had some allocation. But let's also be realistic. If we are really going to move the needle, it's that 2.5 trillion and the 4 trillion is where even the 5 billion, betul lah, zakat bila cukup haul, cukup nisab, you have to distribute same year. And as you said, they do quite a good job. I think the blended finance platform really got to scale up. This is what I tell Bank Negara in my capacity chairing MIC Muhammad. AWANI, or rather tahun lepas, G5, we launched the position paper. Jadi, if I catch to Zafrul punya point tadi, banking system is just one part of the system, to be fair to the banking system. There are 3 arrows, major arrows in the bow. Let's not forget the other 2. The equity market, termasuk private equity, venture, etc. Kita punya ni, sistem ni belum cukup develop, belum cukup mantap lagi. We need to also do that. So, things like POP, for example, dia buat dana pemacu, bagus. Because you need to create those intermediaries that are at different stages of development. The third arrow is actually the philanthropic capital, termasuk zakat, wakaf, endowment. I think the endowment tradition is not just the Islamic tradition, the Buddhist tradition, the Christian tradition pun ada. And that part, the statecraft is how to put it all together. So I would submit, so I sit on the MKI, where Tuan Nazrin is now in. So the wakaf plan, for example, kita kena bring all this together, because how do we mobilize it? I give one very simple example. I was shocked to find out in almost 70 tahun Merdeka, rupanya insurance, takaful or insurance tidak ada untuk food sector. Until 2 budgets ago, you put in for the petani di Kedah. Selalu kena banjir, ya? This kind of, I say, how can that be? And this is where my final point, and it's not Karosali when you do this fault, is the fragmentation of the financial system. Di mana a for-profit financial system, I mean, I can empathize to run Perdana, to Zaf was running CIB for us. You have quarterly results and you're a big estate company, you've got to produce the financial numbers. There will always be a gap between what the developmental side, kalau betul-betul kita nak the inclusivity part. Sustainability is another story. And this is where you have to use all three arrows in the bowl. The key portion is the mix and the blend yang that's statecraft. How do you put that together? And there are already various platforms, and perhaps this is a good start. Bila the forum ini, you bring different elements. So I thought I should know. And with Khairul Saleh memang lah, sitting down with your guys, Datuk most with CIB about how to bring that, because let's be real, the big numbers are banking system 2.5 trillion, capital market 4 trillion. So mana yang lain ni is actually how to bring that together. Dia also want to do, dia also want to solve this thing. Thank you, Muhammad.
Okay, I've been instructed to respond. I mean, as you know, if I can summarize, I can reply in three points. The first one, when it comes to the level of financing that's required, be it for even minor issue today raised by SMEs, it's always going to be difficult for someone like Karasali to do for various reasons. And I completely support your idea of getting all those arrows to come into play. The challenge would be, one is when it comes to the state, they have certain views on the usage of zakat and wakaf. But this, I think, can be addressed if we look at it holistically, but the political will must also be there. The second problem is actually, if you look at the practicality of it, even if you look at the companies itself, the SMEs, etc., many of the, kalau nak katakan private equity itu nak melabur, ataupun angel financing nak melabur, they will look at the quality of the companies itself, right? So today, I think Muhammad very aware, when you look at the productivity of our companies, the productivity of our SMEs, it's now fallen behind Vietnam, it's fallen behind Thailand. I mean, of course, we know many reasons, and one of the major reasons is foreign labor, our investment in Malaysia, etc. The lack of that has resulted in our SME become less competitive and has resulted in people coming to fund these companies pun dah less. The final point, I think, to get that mixture right, we need to ensure that the regulators also play a role. I think CRA, ex-SC chairman this year, I mean, they've done crowdfunding. I think Perdana also Today, Rizal has got weightage on certain capital, on the risk-weighted asset, etc. I think regulators also need to balance that developmental role that's required when you translate that into policies. So if you can look at all this together, and it's not fair to ask financial services to look at it because they will have certain agenda or certain stakeholders that they have to address. So I think we need to look at it holistically, and I think forum like this is good because you will bring into play everybody, all the stakeholders here, that can give a new perspective towards finding the solutions. Thank you.
Terima kasih Daniel. I think apa yang diutarakan itu sebenarnya suatu hal yang mendesak yang harus dipikir. Saya tidak ada alasan untuk dilengahkan. Ada kegagalan dengan negeri dan sistem, tetapi masih ada ruang dalam mesyuarat susulan Kongres Putra baru ini. Saya ambil pendekatan agak keras terhadap syarikat-syarikat ataupun agensi dan kliks, terutama yang putra, yang tidak melakukan atau bertindak dengan agresif untuk memenuhi mandat mereka. Kalau tidak, kita masih itu ada program baru putra. Yang ada apa yang dilakukan oleh Khazanah, apa dilakukan oleh BNB dalam menyelesaikan sebahagian masalah ini, yang juga menyentuh kedudukan B40, entrepreneurship di kalangan masyarakat Melayu, usahawan muda, umpamanya, sebagai contoh. Dia tidak harus membebankan kerajaan, karena agensi sudah besar, keseluruhannya ratus-ratus bilion semuanya. Jadi, saya tekankan agak keras juga, supaya dalam masa tempoh 6 bulan, mereka memberi jawaban. Di satu. Keduanya misalnya macam soal yang disebut social capital zakat. Ya betul kita ada kekangan, tetapi wilayah persekutuan saja punya 1 bilion. Ya, tentunya memenuhi asnaf, ya, tetapi harus bangkit sebagai satu contoh pengurusan yang cukup cekap. Karena 1 bilion ringgit untuk wilayah persekutuan itu tidak kecil, tidak akan mengulangi ataupun bertindih dengan usaha agensi lain. Tapi kalau diselaraskan, ditumpukan, saya pikir banyak yang harus dikerjakan. Dan ini perlu pengurusan di Penyeman Agama itu juga mengambil manfaat daripada kemahiran dan kepakaran yang lain. Apa salahnya untuk pengurusan di Majlis Agama Islam cari kepakaran di Maybank, SC, Bursa, cari besar dan bagi pandangan, dan dia akan lihat tentunya dari segi syariah. Tapi kadang-kadang ini tidak berlaku kerana semuanya bekerja dalam silo. Jadi dia pergi hal-hal yang kemudiannya invest dalam hal-hal yang tidak menguntungkan kerana tidak ada kepakaran bilang itu. Suruh saya, umpamanya saya, ganti Yerusalem. Tak boleh saya habis bagi orang miskin. Jadi ada orang yang mampu urus, ada yang tidak. Saya tidak fikir saya mampu mengurus bank seperti mana yang dia akan dengan begitu baik. Boleh urus. Bagi contoh. Jadi kalau kita dapat mengaku hal itu, seperti mana kita lakukan dalam kabinet sekarang, apa arahan kita terakhir dalam mesyuarat kabinet terakhir? Saya katakan beri ruang kepada KSU, AP, kerana mereka bukan ketua kerani. KSU itu ketua satu kementerian yang dananya kira 26 bilion peruntukan. Dan kalau dia berfikir sebagai ketua kerani, maka tidak akan ada perubahan. Jadi dia harus memikirkan cadangan usaha yang baru dan kemudian berencana untuk memberi nasihat kepada Menteri. Dan saya beritahu kepada jemaah Menteri, tolong dengar saja. Setuju tak setuju tak apa lagi. Tapi dengar dulu dan nilai. Baru boleh kita lakukan perubahan. Kalau tidak, kita sekat. Karena saya masih ingat masa saya pergi ke kawan dulu, lama dulu sebelum beri cuti ke Singapura. Itu soal wakaf sudah dimanggilkan. Dan di antara yang paling tegas kemukakan ialah Profesor Ibrahim. Ya. Dan untuk itu kita lakukan pendaftaran dan simpang 6 di Pulau Pinang. Tapi setakat itu dia tidak maju. Jadi ada
Dan kita berikan alasan-alasan. Memang ada alasan. Tapi sekarang ini kita kata 3 bulan mesti bagi jawapan. 6 bulan mesti bagi jawapan. Bukan bagi alasan. Jadi saya ucap terima kasih kerana teguran itu harus kita teliti. Dan ini tujuan daripada forum ilmuwan ini. Di antara lain untuk pergi sedikit sebanyak asalkan kejutan selain daripada rancangan. Jadi sekali lagi saya terima kasih kepada saya, Bu Zafrul dan Momen kerana memberikan cadangan dan yang juga akan membantu dalam bidang 3 bidang lain. Minggu memberikan tekanan saya dalam satu aspek yang sangat utama lah sebab kita ada keupayaan yang besar di MKS ni. Tetapi somehow ada sekatannya dan ada perubahan. Sebenarnya tidak ada perubahan. Tapi saya ingat kalau kita anggap perubahan yang berlaku dan dengan pace yang ada sekarang, I don't think we can go anywhere further. Selalu kita minta sebab itu saya ingat apabila Bu Zafrul sebut umpamanya tentang productivity dan automation yang relatif lebih lembab di Malaysia kerana PKS itu harus menuntut ada jawapan. Dan jawapan itu sebenarnya tidak semuanya harus popular. Dan saya beritahu rakan-rakan saya di Menteri kalau nak lakukan yang agak tegas dan berani, lakukan tahun ini. Kemudian nanti dekat pilihan raya kita kena slow sikit. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri serta barisan panelis kita pada malam ini. Ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, may I please invite our Honourable Prime Minister and our panelists to join everyone else for sesi bergambar. Yeah? For a group photo session, please.
Dulu. Ada saya. Hah? Mana? Siapa nak? Kita.
Mohon semua bergerak ke bahagian tengah yang di tepi dan di belakang. Sila ke depan dapatkan saf. Saudara-saudari sekalian, dengan ini tamatlah sudah majlis kita malam ini. Sekali lagi kami mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri, tetamu-tetamu kehormat serta saudari dan saudari sekalian. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih dan selamat malam.
Allah. Thank you.